welcome to this week's Microsoft Middle East and Africa Sustainability Dialogues podcast, where we take a deeper dive into this massive push that we're seeing across the region towards decarbonization, towards sustainability, and trying to uncover some insights along the way that will be useful for our stakeholders to help them along their journeys. Today, we're tackling the topic of how to narrow the gap between industry and academia to establish efficient R&D partnerships. So essentially, how to align industry and academia to create more of an enhanced, innovative ecosystem in the region. I'm joined here today with our special guest speakers, Dr. Hani El-Kadi, who is the Dean of the College of Technological Innovation at Zayed University, Dr. Mariam Al-Lawati, who is the Acting Deputy Director of EJAD at the Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation in Oman, and Dr. Dalia Abdallah, who is the Senior Director of Innovation Hub at the American University in Cairo. Thank you all for joining. Dr. Hani, I just wanted to first start with you to get your opening comments on the overall critical question that we're addressing today.
Thank you, Brian. I think the topic today is a very important and interesting topic, and I think people have been trying to deal with this topic. Is not only in the Middle East and North Africa, but all over the world. I would confirm that we are a little behind when comparing to what's happening in the West, for example, in North America, as far as the relationship between industry and academia. And as we will be talking about different issues, I think more and more we are going to see what we can do to approach to the same level of collaboration that happens between the two.
Dr. Mariam, I just want to bring you in for your opening comments, of course, coming from EJAD, which kind of is a glue between industry and academia. What are your opening thoughts on the thesis put forward today?
So, correct, bridging the gap between industry and academia, it is not an easy task. It is very, very difficult. It's like you are combining or trying to make two different totally the words to work together. So to bring them on a joint projects or joint R&D projects is not an easy task. However, it is not impossible. We need some framework, some regulations, also a culture, to build a culture to bring these two sectors together and to work on applied R&D.
Dr. Dalia, I just want to bring you into that as well, to get your perspective, of course, of where we currently are in this alignment between both stakeholders.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Brian. Of course, I mean, I would so much echo that the topic between bridging the gap between academia and industry is not a new topic, and it has been there since ever. However, definitely it's very timely to discuss this more, especially that now the more complex and complicated our socioeconomic problems and challenges that we're facing, not on a humanity level, but specifically on industry, pushes that one player solution to these kind of problems or challenges will not be possible anymore. So it's the necessity that these two words, as Dr. Mariam mentioned, two words coming together and talking together, that would be the only solution to address such chronic challenges. Otherwise, we will keep being in the same loop of these challenges being around.
Dr. Hani, I just want to bring you back in on this. Dr. Mariam, mentioned culture, and of course, as you had said, internationally, it tends to be a little bit farther along in a way. What do you think is kind of the first steps of creating that culture in order to bring industry and academia closer together?
Well, I think the first step would be to examine the situation that we are in right now. Find out what are the difficulties that we are currently encountering, and then see how we can overcome those difficulties in order to be able to develop a culture of collaboration between industry and universities. For example, as Dr. Mariam mentioned, that we are talking about two different worlds. In academia, we are slow pace compared to industry. So I think academia almost looks like it's a static thing compared to industry. Universities in the area, and I'm not going to say all, but most, have teaching as their first priority. So although they try to lower the teaching load for faculty in order for them to do research, but when you come to compare that to Western universities, for example, we are far, far away from that. For example, faculty here are more interested in getting their CVs buffed up to get promoted, to get renewed as far as contracts are renewed. They don't really, it's not a priority really to associate themselves with working with industry or focusing on research project with industry. And this is strange because most of those faculty who are working here have been in the West or have been in different countries where really the collaboration between industry and the university is ultimate. So it becomes that they are trying to get themselves with the system that we are here, that we actually want to break down and get more and more relation between industry and between the university. If I just add a small thing, at Zayed University, like all the other universities, I'm sure at AUC it's the same thing. There are some things in the curriculum where we have some collaboration between industry and the university, not too much though. So I think we need to try and improve that collaboration and move it towards R&D rather than just a basic collaboration.
Mm. And in terms of, first step of being able to do that, obviously from national level in the region, of course in the UAE, there are research priorities, goals kind of established as we go towards net zero. Are you seeing that on a smaller side in developing this ecosystem, whether it's Zayed University or the other universities industry? Have those research priorities and targets been established in order to better effectively engage with industry around them?
I would say it's moving in the right direction. However, are we there yet? No, we are not there yet. And as both my colleagues on the podcast said, it's lots of work to get it done.
Dr. Mariam, just building off of that, of course, obviously it's a chicken and egg situation in some aspects, and of course, EJOT has had a journey from conception to now, which took some time to cut off its feet as a platform. Who should lead this engagement? Should it be academia? Should it be industry? Should it be government? Who do you see from your side kind of being the one that pushes that through to initially spark collaboration and R&D?
So in our case, just maybe to give a brief background about EJAD. For EJAD is an collaboration hub between industry and academia and our goal is to bridge the gap between industry and academia in the area of applied R&D. And we are like a program within the Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation. As you said, you asked that which sector should lead this area. I would say neither, because you will not these three entities are part of the ecosystem of the R&D. So government, industry and academia, also in addition SMEs, they are all of our partners within the ecosystem of doing and of completing a complete R&D and fulfilling a final outcome. So without any one of these we cannot do anything. So, however, if like the government can lead, have been a neutral sector or party to this ecosystem, it will be great. for us, we are being as the ministry, we've been the neutral party in this case. So we don't have like an specific, we have a specific agenda to improve the R&D in Oman, and we try to bring the industry, the Omanis from the private sector from Oman, to collaborate with local academia and local SMEs.
Dr. Jolly, I just want to bring you in on that, as well as you've had, of course, with Innovation Hub, experience in creating that environment as well, to develop linkages between SMEs, large corporations, government, academia. What are the kind of the low-hanging fruits to create a more enhanced ecosystem on that, based off of your experience?
Thank you, Brian. Actually, it's not a matter of a low-hanging fruit. Let's first differentiate that when we say industry, it's not one bulk homogeneous things. The needs are entirely different. The corporates, whether they are multinationals or local, are entirely different needs than local SMEs with challenges on their product innovation or business model innovation, and so on and so forth. So the needs are different, diverse, and dealing with an industry as one bulk with one specific, like, hey, we can offer you labs for testing or for improving or coming up with a new product, that would be easier. But actually, challenges are much more complicated than this.
It's like thinking of the Middle East and Africa as one country. It's not the case.
Imagine, yes, that's also another layer of complexity, of course. So if I'm telling you a factory working in the food industry in Egypt with 500 workers is entirely different from a large corporate working in Dubai or Abu Dhabi with thousands of engineers and stuff. So the challenges are entirely different. And what we're trying is to offer the space where all these kind of challenges could be presented in the right context, and then we can link the right solution that they're looking for. So we're mix and matching between customization and plug and play solutions, where the industry could start and trust that, okay, academia are not talking entirely from theory, but they know the business lingo, they know the challenges. So that's where we're trying to bridge also the gap and build the trust that has been broken for some reason across the years between academia and industry. And I fully agree also with Dr. Hani about the multidisciplinary approach of dealing with the ecosystem and putting that forward for sure.
Dr. Hani, do you just want to build on that as well, coming from your perspective at Zayed University, in terms of, of course, who leads that, how we lead that? You mentioned, focusing on applied research versus theoretical research. I just want to get your perspectives on what next steps possibly could be.
Let me pick up what Dr. Maryam said. When you asked her about who should lead, she said nobody. I think everybody. I think everybody should contribute to the part, and everybody has their own parts to play. So I think on the academic side, we have to encourage faculty and reward them if they work on projects that are related to industry, make a difference. So they are really encouraged to do that. On the industry side, as Dr. Dalia said, we have to find a way to make them trust what the university faculty are doing, because lots of time, the research that those faculty are doing is very useful to them. The only thing is the silo effect and the mistrust effect are causing problems. But on the other hand, I want to get into also the financial situation, because it always—
that should be an incentive as well.
Yeah, it always comes. I was just digging around and I found out a report from 2020 saying that the US is spending $720 billion a year on R&D. China, 582 billion. The UK, 56 billion. Do you know how many countries from North Africa and the Middle East are on the top 20 list? No one.
No one really.
No one.
So Academic City might have a—
Well, I think they are a very good example, but no one is on the top 20 list. So I think faculty feel, or academia feel, that industry should support them financially. Industry wants a quick turnaround of ideas. So it's, as I said, it's everybody working together.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that. Essentially, it's part of that trust is also creating incentives for industry to engage with academia as well, and that creates a better partnership around that, where you do have industry, multinationals that might say, "Hey, we have in-house R&D. We can pick something off the shelf right away and try to apply it, into the field. Is it worth it for us to engage with academia on R&D?" I mean, a big part of that is the communication aspect, as you mentioned, in terms of what solutions are there. What do you think that first step could be? And of course, Dr. Marion or Dr. Dalia jumping in, for industry to understand that there is a value of creating in-country capacity on R&D. There's a value with, again, engaging with that stakeholder ecosystem. What do you think that incentive could be, Dr. Hani?
Who is the question for? Is it
I was
for
asking
me?
Dr. Hani, but I was going to open that up to, of course, everyone.
Yeah, that's fine. I think baby steps with a small project, with small work, small relationship between industry and the university. I think lots of programs, including here at Zayed University, we have National Advisory Council that are members from companies, from government, from industry, on the councils for the colleges. In our college, for example, we have a council with people from all over the UAE. They come, they listen to what we offer as far as curriculum. They suggest things that can be done differently. They suggest a better way of communication with them. And we find out from those discussions what are the issues that these companies want us to work on. Because lots of time faculty are in one side and the companies are completely other side. So we need to get them together to work on the same things that are both interested in.
Dr. Dalia, do you just want to also build on my answer as well, in terms of trying to draw what that incentive is for industry to better engage with academia? We mentioned communication is an issue. Of course, if I don't know what gadgets, or let's say in the toolbox that academia has to offer in terms of solutions, I'm never going to probably develop trust or engage on that. From your experience, what has been a big aspect of drawing industry into those partnerships?
Did you say Dalia or you said Dr. Mariam?
Dr. Dalia, sorry.
Okay. Sure.
Again.
Sure. No, actually, I mean, ironically, there are a lot of, industry, if we can group them for the time being, on the contrary, they are interested they are motivated, but the short-termism, maybe that Dr. Hani mentioned, the short-termism focus and profit maximization approach that they're looking for could sometimes tunnel funnel the way they look at things. So when academia comes and say, okay, we're talking about sustainability issues that would require a little bit of patience and investment from your side in that part, maybe they would be much more interested in maybe short-term focus. So I agree that small steps focus on specific projects with this. And the second thing is that a lot of academia, they do have a lot of efforts already existing with industry, but they need a little bit of coordination. For example, we have huge work with our technology transfer office doing a lot of work with our industry. There are a lot of faculty research doing industry. So I think also the academia internally, they need a lot of coordination internal in trying to put forward to the industry the offering that they're looking for. And just focus on, I wouldn't say that we shift into profit maximization, because the impartiality of academia is needed still, but to start to think that businesses need a little bit shorter cycle of impact, and they need to see things much shorter and in more tangible impact thing than maybe academia looking for the industry impact as overall.
Dr. Mariam, coming from the government aspect and seeing this, what has been the key incentive continually with EJOB, of course? I mean, for industry to engage, I believe you have the entire energy industry on EJOB, as well as all of Oman universities, possibly regional ones as well, international partnerships.
True.
Of course, being the host. What has been that continuous momentum?
Yeah, for us, from our experience in Ajad, we worked with more than 35 stakeholders, ranging from different stakeholders and big companies in Oman, like PDO, Oman LNG, and other Shell and BP are members of Ajad, and they are like very collaborative members, and they engage in many of R&D projects done with local academia, and all like adding to my colleagues in this podcast, Dr. Hani and Dr. Adalia, uh, the challenge that we faced also the same, that the not efficient communication between the two sectors, also the mistrust between the two entities, how we can recover that. So for us, we try to do different frameworks. We created different SOPs to bring the two sectors together. In addition, and in order to know more about the private sector and how they think, we try to develop and build and invite private sector to workshops, brainstorming sessions, to know more about their requirements. What are their expectations? What are their mandates? What do they see the local academia can do? How, what their final objective? Are the duration? All of these aspects are will be answered during the different sessions. So, as Dr. Daria said that industry is looking for short-term solutions. However, as Dr. Hines said, that academic are busy, very busy with their courses, their teaching, and they don't have enough time to do R&D. So how we can lower the expectation of the industry and manage the expectation of academia. So it takes time to build that communication. However, it is doable. You go through a lot of negotiation between two parties until you reach uh, uh, an, uh, an even point between them.
Well, should there be, and I believe Ijad might have, have done this at the beginning, should there be something as basic as a protocol just to get more companies and academias communicating? An agreement of even just how to engage with each other on R&D with terms and something of a framework like that. Would that be useful?
Yes, yes. So we have started in Egypt to when we founded in 2017, we started with an R&D protocol, and we defined all the aspect of communication and the roles or responsibilities of each party, the expectations, the what kind of focus areas that we would like to focus on. First, we started with oil and gas sector. However, right now until 2022, we expanded to focus on 8 other focus areas, such as environment, digitalization, water, renewable energy, and other. So, and from that protocol and the formulated frameworks that we developed in Ejad, right now we have more than 78 projects with industry. All are supplied or provided to local academia.
Dr. Honey, you raised your hand just to.
Yeah, I just want to pick up on what Dr. Mariam said because it makes lots of sense to me. At Zayed University, we develop lots of memorandum of understanding with different companies, and this is a way to get them to campus to meet and to talk. One of them is with Microsoft. So they come to campus, they contribute, they talk to the faculty, they talk to the students. We have developed in the college a next generation center that is done specifically to invite government and industry to the campus, to link them with the students, to collaborate with, so the students can collaborate with those entities, and the faculty also find out what those entities want, and accordingly develop some research that will be beneficial to both of them.
Well, do just, for example, do companies, even on a basic foundation level, if they had an issue, let's say in water security, do you think a lot of companies would have a contact for a focal point at the university on, hey, we have this issue to contact that? I mean, just on a basic level of trying to facilitate better communication.
I think,
yeah.
If I understand your question, I think lots of companies would like to have something like an MOU to start collaborating. And depending on
understanding focal points at university.
Yes.
So, for example, you're a focal point where Mohammed Hassan, who oversees energy and sustainability at EA, might be able to contact you from Microsoft and say, "Hey, we have this issue." Are you seeing that even on a basic level, that ecosystem being set up, or is there still work to be done in that area?
Yeah, I think this is a possibility for this thing to happen. The collaboration with these companies encourages others to get in touch and talk about. We have a big, a very well-known program in the UAE about cybersecurity, for example. So we get lots of people who would like to collaborate on that front.
Dr. Delia, apologies. I know you've been raising your hand. I just want to also bring you in to comment further.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. I just want to add on that in addition, of course, to traditional linkages also with faculty and research, there is a increasing interest also among industry and corporate world, especially towards the startup scene, startup space, where actually a lot of innovation, a lot of a new, especially disruptive innovation comes from smaller startups, especially the growing ones. And that's also a scene that we're seeing that a lot of corporates are interested to have such dialogue, the discussion for potential collaboration. And the AUC, we have a really long-standing support schemes towards startups and engaging them with larger industry so that we also build the ecosystem that we started off together. So I just wanted to add this to what Dr. Mariam and Dr. Hani were discussing. Yeah.
Dr. Mariam, you have your hand raised as well. If you want
Yes.
to.
So I would
Okay.
like to add the point that you highlighted is about the role of focal points. So the role of focal points is very important in every entity. You need you would say and specialize a focal point at a focal point that at least understand the culture or have basic knowledge about the R&D, how he can communicate with his entity, and how he can collaborate with other entities. So the role of a focal point is always very important to bring in projects and communicate with other different levels within his corporate and also within the academia. So whenever the bigger the institute is, you will need at least one or two focal points, but no more, because it will create some misunderstanding, miscommunication. But at least you need one focal point per institute.
Dr. Hani, you mentioned earlier about the pace at which, let's say, industry moves versus academia. I just want to move into developing skill sets essentially as well. How can industry, sorry, I keep saying that as a blanket word, but companies, the private sector, engage with academia, the manner in which, in terms of enhancing academic programs for the future, to develop those skill sets. For example, a company might not know, let's say in 2 years what they need. I think sustainability officers is a new term, right? Sustainability executives, let alone even trying to work right now to prepare for 10 years down the road. What could be better done to improve that alignment on developing capacity and capabilities for students, essentially?
Well, I think I agree what you said, and I think the university have to develop a balanced curriculum that would include those attributes that the university are looking for, that the industry is looking for. Lots of time, soft skills, for example, could be one of those things that industry is looking for. I'm not talking about research now, I'm talking about hiring people that the university is not covering. So I think there should be a focal point from the industry and from the university to get together, to talk together. The more you get them together, sitting at the same table, talking about those things, the better chance you have to develop a good R&D relationship between them.
Dr. Dalia, in terms of building capacity, you mentioned startups. Of course, it's an interesting way. If you're a student, PhD, researcher, you can actually create your own product and you can bring it to market through, let's say, a corporation and so forth, developing your own entity. What role are you seeing in terms of industry helping to better align with those skill sets? I mean, obviously, the Innovation Hub creates that ecosystem, but I imagine there's a pathway that allows for those ideas for entrepreneurs and SMEs to move forward with.
You mean corporates getting
Yes.
closer to the startup world?
Around academic programs, developing skill sets, which of course then leads into the development of students creating startups, for example.
Well, it's again, if I understood your question correctly, Brian, is that they again, they're very interested. And again, students could be, we're talking about undergrad, we're talking about fresh grad, we're talking about alumni, we're talking about postgraduate studies. There's definitely the accessibility that these corporates and these big words are very interested in, is that on the new talents, right? I mean, with new challenge. I mean, for example, we're talking about industries. They're very much into AI students who are and they're fine genius students here studying AI, and they can offer a lot to those corporates. So the accessibility to students on all levels is definitely one of the things that corporates would be very much interested and usually interested in collaborating with us to get access to students, in addition to the faculty of research and so on and so forth. So access to students, access to startups. If I understood your question correctly, Brian, please correct me if I'm wrong. The accessibility where actually academia could offer to these corporates are definitely priceless, and they are invaluable. And that actually would be the true motivation of why some industries would be interested to work with academia, is the accessibility to such talent. For example, in Egypt, they have most of the businesses have huge issues of access to good talent. Although the supply of graduates are huge here in Egypt, but really good talent is very, very, very challenging. And that could be one of the things that they can definitely be interested and motivated to cooperate with.
Of course. And of course, it's a part of also being involved in creating your future workforce too, essentially.
Exactly.
Dr. Mariam, you have your hand up as well, if you also want to join in.
Yes, adding to what Dr. Hani said and Dr. Dalia said about the talent and building capability, I agree with Dr. Hani that we need focal points also to come to academia to understand the requirements of academia. Here, I don't know if you have heard about programs with the name staff mobility. So there are some frameworks regarding staff mobility that can be formulated to work with R&D sector. So within any projects that goes with R&D, we can encourage the movement of staff or researchers from the academic sector to the industry to learn more about the skills or the topics that the industry is working on that in that specific project, and also encouraging the industry employees to go to the academia to do some like awareness sessions or work hands on with the on the project with the academia. They will learn both sides, and you will encourage the convergence of views between the two sectors. So this one of the programs that are very important to bridge the gap between industry and academia.
Well, it seems like 30 minutes goes by pretty quick. I think we're actually a little bit over 30 minutes. So I just want to start to wrap up, but I just kind of wanted to do a rapid fire, on the short-term outlook ahead. We have COP27 coming up. What are your kind of expectations, or what are you looking for most to come out of that gathering? Dr. Hani, I just want to start with you for your closing comments.
I'm hoping that something like that, some event like that, will excite people from both sides, and eventually will lead to a better ecosystem of collaboration and transfer of knowledge between universities and industry in general.
Dr. Dalia, your closing comments? I know we're moving now from the pledge phase at COP to implementation. I just want to get your insights.
My closing things is that, of course, it cannot be more timely, and it requires more than just one player. And having Egypt, having now hosting the COP27 this year, of course, And AUC is highly contributing to the event with more than one initiative. I think it's time that we stop talking and we just do things, and that would be the best approach to start working and showcase, because there are a lot of success stories and good initiatives already in place, but either they are so low profile or they just need to be shown in a better context. But it's the timely thing, and AUC is very keen on working on this on all kind of initiatives, especially with the coming up COP27.
Well, promotion of those opportunities is something to focus on, right? Promotion of R&D,
Yes,
innovation,
exactly.
solutions. Dr. Miriam, I'll leave it with you for the closing comments to get your viewpoints on the short term ahead.
So recently, Oman have announced 2050 will be our Oman will achieve its neutralization in carbon. So we know that it is a huge objective for us, but the sky is high, and we know that there are a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of challenges in the environment and the carbon reduction sector. However, we will work closely with industry and other environmental institute, also global institute, to encourage more R&D and applied R&D projects and researches to be done through in this aspect.
Well, thank you all for joining us today on today's podcast. For those who are listening, please feel free to follow our special guest on social media and, of course, on Microsoft's platforms, where we'll be posting content harvested from this podcast and the podcast itself. But thank you very much for all of your insights, and we look forward to having you back on the series again at a later date.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you very much.